Hey, Jonathan here at TopSaw. This channel is all things wood, from tree work to woodwork. I teach high school woodshop, and that's where we are right here. So right now we're in COVID lockdown, so we are actually online. Let me go in here to the classroom. So unfortunately, this is how we're teaching woodshop right now. I have my 30 students on that big screen TV, and we're working on a lot of CAD drafting and drawing. We are learning how to design well, but we are not in the shop. But I do have a fantastic, super exciting thing happening today. David Picciuto from Make Something is going to join my class and talk to the students for about an hour. My goal as a teacher is to inspire my students to design and build whatever they want. Hopefully, through this process, they'll discover their own passions and they will also acquire skills of design and building and woodwork. Really exciting to have David Picciuto here from Make Something because he is, in fact, one of my biggest inspirations. I love his YouTube channel. I get a lot of inspiration from it just to jump in and make. So let's get started, and I'm really looking forward to David sharing his wisdom with my classes today. Before we get started, though, if you're new here to my channel and you like what this channel is about, think about subscribing.
So everybody is at home, it looks like. This is a crazy time.
I'll just say a couple of things and then I'll mute my mic and then I'll pin you to the screen, David. So how it works, if you want to be the cool kid in class, you tip your camera all the way up. This is kind of like sagging your pants. So it's kind of like having your pants fall down on campus. So you just tip that camera up so you could just see like a receding hairline. That's it. So that's what you do to be cool in class. Dominic, you know what I'm talking about right there. I can't tell if you're smiling because your camera's tipped up. That's nice. All right, so everyone, if you're paying attention, we've all gone to your webpage, kind of investigated David Picciuto's webpage. We've all watched a few of your videos. Kyle, who has a hard time with the mute button, was just commenting that he watched the one on the Bluetooth speakers and how much he loved it. And with that said, I'm going to mute my mic and then pin David on the screen. And then if you have a question, try not to interrupt. Try to hit that nod function or hold your hand up. I'm kind of looking for nods from all of you.
So I mean, I don't have a lot prepared. I always prefer to, like, if you get, let's ask questions, and I want to ask you guys questions and we can have a conversation. But I've been doing the YouTube thing full time for like 6 years. And I'm 44 years old now, and I really did not get into woodworking until my late 30s. And so if you guys are enjoying making stuff and enjoying woodworking, you've got such a huge head start. I didn't even play with Legos as a kid. I never really made stuff. I played in music. I played in bands all my life, and I took art classes in high school, but I only took art classes so I didn't have to take regular classes. I and I'm a terrible role model for high school students because I barely graduated high school. I had to go back to my chemistry teacher on the last day of school to see if I got a high enough grade on my chemistry exam to see if I graduated high school. I did not have any motivation back at that time. I graduated in '93. And a few years later, I mean, I worked at Kmart for 7 years. And a few years later, I just kind of realized, like, this is not what I want to do the rest of my life. And all of a sudden, just like a light switch just flipped, and I got super motivated. And I went to school. I thought I was going to be this huge, big time graphic designer. And I worked in graphic design for a little bit, and then I become very, very obsessed with things, and I love learning new things. And so I went to school for graphic design, and then I met somebody who owned a recording studio, and I got really obsessed with audio recording. So then I I kind of hung out around the studio for a year and just kind of shadowed one of the engineers until I was able to take on my own clients there. And then I got into photography and I started doing um, like freelance photography and wedding photography. And then I became a web developer. That kind of came from graphic design into web development. And I found myself just sitting in front of a computer all day at school, and then I would go home and I would do freelance projects all day. And I loved it. I really enjoyed web development, but I found myself just like wanting to do something physical and just with my hands. And I picked up woodworking and I just became like super obsessed with it. And it was just right around the time like when YouTube was really taking off. And I'm like, well, I'll just kind of film my progress and start making videos. And then I got super obsessed with making videos. And then I was able to use all of those things, the graphic design, the photography, the audio recording, and the woodworking all into one. And that's kind of led me to where I'm at now. I have all these interests. My audience tends to like woodworking projects the most, so that's what I do the most. But I, I'm trying to branch out a little bit more, and I'm trying to get out of my comfort zone and do some metalworking. I want to get more into art. I want to do some music projects on my channel. But I think the point of that long story is you don't. I mean, everybody's different, but for me, I didn't know what I wanted to be at your age, and you don't have to know right now. You can just have fun and just enjoy making stuff and just see where that leads. And you never know where life is going to take you. 10 years ago, I didn't know anything about woodworking, and if somebody would have said, "You're going to be a professional YouTuber making woodworking videos on the internet," I've been like, "You're crazy. You're absolutely crazy." And then my latest obsession is go-kart racing. If a year ago you would have said you're going to be heavily into go-kart racing, I'm like, no, I don't care for motorsports. But here we are. I just pick up on things, and I love learning. And um, whether whether you enjoy making stuff or not, just uh, just try to um, enjoy the learning process of it because you'll definitely appreciate it down the road. So, um, I'm really hoping we could do like a Q&A. I know you guys watch the chair videos, and I don't know if you can see it on camera, but I've got the prototype chair behind me, and then I also have the finished chair behind me. I don't know if that could be a topic of discussion. I'm open to anything, but if anybody has any questions, um, please feel free to ask. Mr. Schwartz, I don't know. Uh, um, Hopefully, I'm not changing up what you thought was going to happen, but I'm open to do whatever here.
Well, here, let me do this. It's a little weird. I mean, people could post comments and ask questions in the comments section, but right now, Wyatt is actually looking more interested than I've seen in 4 years of high school. So let me go let me go to Wyatt and see if he has a question. Wyatt, ask Mr. Picciuto a question.
So I did go to college. Um, I I w- I applied to go to Bowling Green State University, and I actually moved to Bowling Green thinking I was going to go to Bowling Green State University. And the funny thing is, they said your grades were so bad in high school that we can't accept you. So you have to go to a community college first for 2 semesters, then prove to us that you can get good grades. And so what happened then was I went to this community college, and I absolutely loved it. I got really good grades in college, and then transferred to another community college where they had a better graphic design program. So I have a degree in graphics. It's just an associate's 2 years degree, and and I don't want to uh, persuade anybody to go one direction or another. But I have found in the creative world, ad agencies don't they seem to care less and less about what degree that you have, and they care more about how creative you are and how how passionate you are. And so I was able to get a really good job at, but with a really good creative ad agency, and they didn't care that I only had a 2-year degree. They just wanted somebody who was willing to learn. So I I'm going against. I used to have a set schedule. Like I would design a project on Monday and pick up the materials on Monday, film on a Tuesday, and then finish filming on Wednesday, and then edit Thursday and Friday, and try to put out a video before the weekend. And I I feel most comfortable when I sit down and I draw up the designs first. And lately, I've been doing a couple projects where I am just kind of winging it, and I it's extremely uncomfortable because it feels like I'm setting myself up for failure when I do that. And so, uh, but for my audience, I think they enjoy seeing me fail as much as they enjoy seeing me succeed. So I know my end product is usually not the woodworking project. It's usually the video. My audience wants to see me put out a good video. So it's okay if I fail, but I definitely feel better when I plan everything out on that Monday and draw it up, and I know what all my cuts are supposed to be, and I can go through the project a lot quicker, and I just have a lot more confidence when I do it that way. A question for you, everybody in the class. How is woodshop working out if everybody is working from home? What are the projects that are you guys doing now? Curious for my own information, just like by show of hands, how much do you guys enjoy the design process more than the woodworking, or do you, no, shaking your head? Because for me, I love the design process and the editing the video and the end, the showing off the thing that I made, sometimes a lot more than the actual physical thing. So the stuff in the middle is just it's just filler for me to get by, because I don't know, I just love design, and I'm constantly going through Pinterest and books and then the internet and magazines, just looking for inspiration. And then I also love showing that thing off to my audience. So I was curious to see if you guys are enjoying the design process.
Maybe in the comments section on a scale of 1 to 10, throw a number in there on how much you like design. Like 10 is just like what David said, I love design. It's like the best part of any project. And 1 is, I don't even know how to spell design.
Oh, that's great. So yeah, there's a good mix in there. Designing a project. Do I have one of my notebooks here? Oh, I usually have a sketch notebook around, but before I even hit the computer, I will sketch out a bunch of ideas on paper, and I find that I'm not a very good. I can't draw very well, and but as long as I'm sketching out shapes and I can get an idea of what I want, I find that saves me so much time when I get to the computer, because I have a little bit more of an idea of what I want. And I don't care too much about dimensions when I'm sketching. It's just more about getting the shape. How is this chair going to look from the profile view? And then when I get to the computer, I use the computer to help me fill the gaps. Okay, I know it's going to be 18 inches wide, so that means this piece has to be so big, and whatever. Um, so I really encourage everybody to use a pencil, and I try to encourage my audience to use a pencil and paper as much as they can before getting the computer. It just there's something magical for me about the physical item of using a pencil, and so that can help maybe enjoy the design process a little bit more.
Actually, with that said, go ahead and turn to your notebooks right now. Pick your favorite drawing and just hold that favorite drawing up to the camera.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that was beautiful, David. I mean, that's kind of what we've been doing. Everybody has a paper notebook with pencil. to draw? Elliot, let's see what you got. Oh, your notebook. Your favorite drawing in there.
Oh, wow. Some of you are really good at sketching. I feel like when I show, like I'm going to be judged, and I don't want to be judged by those pencil drawings. I would rather be judged by the finished project. This isn't my sketch notebook. This is more of just like an ideas with words. But I find myself, if I just have an idea, I'll write it down. I don't necessarily need a sketch, and I'll sit down and I'll kind of brainstorm projects that I want to do. And even if they're something I know I'll never make, I'll still write it down, because if I flip through this book like a year or two later and I'm like, I have no idea what I was thinking when I wrote that down, a lot of times it feels like I'm brainstorming with myself, because I'm like, oh, but I could take that and apply it to this thing that I'm making. And so I think just writing stuff down and then going through it down the road is a great way to brainstorm with yourself.
You know, one thing I find very interesting is both this idea of passion and discovering passion. But, you know, you say you started in high school in art classes, and then from there, graphic design, photography, video design, YouTube design. So that design element has always been a big part of your life. How do you go from one passion to the next? So how do you go from a design passion to a go-kart passion? Like, how does a kid, well, I guess how does a kid figure out what they're passionate about? Like, so how did you discover your passion for go-karting?
It's I think because we live in this internet age, we are seeing there's videos and vlogs and blogs and people making stuff. And when I encounter other people who are passionate, I just feed off of that. Like, I just like, I don't know if you guys watch the science channel Smarter Every Day. The host of that channel, Destin, he is just genuinely excited to talk about what he's going to talk about that day. And I'm like, it could be about something I have no interest in, but when I see somebody that passionate talk about that thing, I am all in. Like I forget that I even have a phone, and I'm like paying attention to my computer screen. So I feed off of other people's passion. And so the go-karting thing came from my cousin. He races what's called a sprint car. So it's like a larger race car, but then also races these go-karts. And it's a little bit more attainable to somebody like me who just wants to dabble in racing. But he just like went off on like, oh, it's more than just going in circles on a dirt track. There's 15 different ways to set up the cart and adapt to the different track conditions and how to compete against these other races. And I just got completely absorbed. I just absorbed myself into like his passion, and I seem to do that quite a bit. And that's probably how I got into photography and all these other things. It's just like passion is super contagious, and it's. There's a thing that I don't know how to explain, and Jimmy DeResta has talked about this a little bit. Maybe he can explain it a little bit better. But it's always being open and to accept new things. Like if you're just walking in a park, like don't just go for a walk, but like look at things and how that thing can inspire you. Look for something to photograph, or you see a building. How can that building be translated into a wooden box that I want to make? And it's always just being open and looking at things and trying to find that inspiration. It's just always open to inspiration. Really good question. And the answer for that, I see a lot of times cheap, or even plywood's expensive, but if you can get some cheaper plywood, you can prototype something that way. So the chairs behind me here. So this was the first chair, and this was just plywood from the hardware store. And I'm glad I did this first, because this one is made out of walnut. So if I went and bought all the walnut for this, and I would have, if you watch the video, you know that I got lucky and got this walnut kind of cheap. But walnut here, walnut can be really expensive. If I just would have dove into that and bought the walnut from my local hardwood dealer, that chair would have cost me, you know, $100-$200 or whatever. And I know from the prototype that the first one isn't super comfortable. So it's just finding cheaper materials like plywood. My buddy Chad, who lives down the street, he makes miniatures of his furniture. He's a professional cabinet maker. He'll design kitchen installs, sometimes dining tables and built-in entertainment centers. And a lot of times he'll make a little miniature first, and that kind of helps him problem solve what he's going to run into. And plus, he also has this 1/10 scale of this thing that he can actually show the client, and the client can make final changes that they need to before spending all that money. So maybe looking into miniatures. And I personally haven't done it, but Jimmy DiResta will say try to make something out of popsicle sticks first. That's a great, like, popsicle sticks. You can buy 100 of them on Amazon for $2. So that's a great way to experiment and tinker. I will say woodworking in general is just an expensive hobby, and it's so hard to find alternative cheap ways, but lots of people do it all the time. There's a channel called Jackman Works, where Paul Jackman makes mostly things out of, he exclusively works with pallet wood, and so he gets all these pallets for free, and so all of his projects come from that. Another great YouTube channel that I like is Wobie Design, and he makes everything out of old skateboards. So he lives in LA. He just goes down to all the old skateboard shops in town, and they give him all the old boards. He takes off the grip paper and then glues them together in this press, and then makes things out of that. So and both of those methods, the pallet wood and the skateboards, is it's a cheaper way of doing something, but it's also a unique way. Like Paul's and Wobie's items look like nobody else's because they found this creative, cheap way of doing this thing. So using the limitations of your budget can actually sometimes make the process a little bit more creative and help you come up with unique ideas.
I will say these students really have it well for materials and lumber, because there's thousands of board feet in logs outside. So all they need to do is
awesome.
grab a log and mill it, and then it's kind of unlimited lumber because of the mill and the trees we have.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's a great resource. When we did have wood shop at my high school, and that is no longer there. Like many high schools have eliminated a lot of art. So everybody in their class is very lucky to have this great resource. Over time, so my answer now might not be the right answer a year or two from now, but when I started doing the woodworking YouTube thing full time, there was probably 4, 5 other people doing it full time. And the one thing that I noticed of all the people that turned YouTube into their job was they were talking to the camera and showing their personality. I think people connect to a face. So now there are hundreds of people making maker videos, woodworking videos, metalworking videos, and a lot of times you only see their hands. And that's great if you just want to learn something, but it's more fun to learn if you actually connect with that personality. So I say, if you want to make YouTube videos and you want to get yourself known, show your face, show your personality. And the one thing is, it's really hard to talk to a camera at first. it's not like talking to a person at all, and it's weird. For me, it was weird. And so my first videos, I seemed kind of shy, and then I'm like, oh, I gotta add all this energy, and then I added too much energy, and I was a little too over the top, and then I found like the middle ground. But just know and make videos that people want to share, and that's the biggest thing, is just, and going back to the passion, people connect with somebody who's excited about what they're doing, like genuinely excited about what they're doing. So you have to make videos of something that you are excited about. You can't just make a chair because, oh, I think people are going to watch a video about making a chair. You have to be excited about that chair. So, and show your face, talk. Don't be afraid to expose your personality. It's the go-kart thing took me in a crazy direction. So I started making my own go-kart frame, and so that led me to getting a welder and a tube bender and a tube notcher. Because like if you have a round tube and it has to connect into another piece, that piece has to kind of fish mouth over that. So you need this tube, a thing called a tube notcher. And so that kind of got me into metalworking, as well as taking a local class here in town. But that's not the end result of it. I want to use that metalworking as making furniture. So there are lots of metalworking YouTube channels out there, and I'll see they're just cutting square tubing and welding things together. And so I want to take what I learned from the go-kart and apply that to furniture, where I can bend tubing around a form or whatever and do all this crazy stuff and make furniture that's unique to me. So I want to get into metalworking mostly for furniture and art purposes. And one of the great things about metalworking is once you weld two pieces together, you can almost immediately move on to the next step. Whereas woodworking, you glue something up, and now you have to wait an hour or so before you can move to the next step. And a lot of times with what I'm doing, it's all about the flow and the rhythm of the project. And I hate being taken out of that rhythm because it feels like I have to start over. Like, okay, I got to take a break. And then it takes me a long time to jump back in and get back into that rhythm that I had before. So that's one of the great things about metalworking. You can just keep going. Toledo, Ohio. And that's one of the lucky things about being where I'm at is I forget where you guys are at. California?
Yep. Yeah. Northern California.
So Toledo is like 1/10 the price of living than anywhere in California. And so I was able to quit my job and do the YouTube thing quite early just because mortgages and things here are just cheaper. And I got very lucky with that. So, it's not as, the weather isn't probably as nice as where you guys are, but I do love where I live. It's a great place. And I think the crappy weather that we get in the wintertime brings out a lot of great artists because people are just in their basements or in their garages making stuff. And I think that really breeds creativity. The least favorite part, it's all the behind the scenes stuff. So how I make most of my money is through sponsorships. So a company says, hey, I want to sponsor your video. It's the negotiation part. I'm not real good at that. And so that kind of stinks. What taxes, doing all that stuff. Trying to convince the guy who does my taxes, like this is a real thing that I do, you know. But everything that you see on camera, I absolutely love. I love the design process. I love making the videos. I love editing sometimes more than the actual woodworking project. So all of that stuff I absolutely love. I can say I don't enjoy people calling me an idiot on the internet, and and a lot of the people saying negative things, so that can eat away at me sometimes. But for the most part, nearly everything I do is just bonkers fun.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of things I love about YouTube. I probably first got fascinated with YouTube a long time ago through product design. And as you're trying to launch a product, the best way to get your Google search optimized is to have a YouTube video of that product so your search results go up higher. From there, I kind of recognize that it's the number one search engine for kids under or for people under 25 years old. And then I realized that my number one tool in my toolbox is now my phone. So if I'm trying to do, I don't know, put in new seats in my car, anything, the way I learn things now, I never go to the library. I don't know when the last time I went to the library, but when I was a kid, you go to the library. Now I just go to YouTube. So I feel like it's just a big part of modern life, and it's really possibly the biggest part of education.
It really is. Like, I mean, I have my phone with me, like everybody, wherever I go, and I constantly, my favorite tool on the phone is the camera. I am constantly taking photos of things. I love going to the antique stores and just photographing things all the time, as I love to see old products and how they were put together. And I'm stealing ideas. I'm actually stealing ideas, like, oh, the way this a piece of this old radio fits together with this, I could use that idea in a box. And so I just, when I don't know when I'm waiting for something and I don't know what to do, I'm just going through my old photos, like, oh yeah, I remember I took a photo of that a couple of years ago or whatever, and maybe that'll spark an idea for a new thing. I do love the library, and I still go to the library every once in a while, because I am I collect books. On the other side of my computer here, there's like 300-400 books. I try to get a lot of my inspiration from books instead of YouTube. I think the main reason is I'm trying to um, stand out from the other woodworking YouTubers. And I know they're probably finding their inspiration and they're probably learning from YouTube. So I'm trying to learn from books and other sources. That way, we're not pulling from the same resources, and maybe what I'm doing can be a little bit different. So there's still the library still means a lot to me. And I actually go to the library just to work and edit video sometimes, just to get out of my element, because I find being in the same place all the time. I work from home, so I'm always home, and I just need a different environment to spark creativity. It's embarrassing because I've been playing the guitar since I think 1992, and I should be so much better. I should I should be so much better. I can't solo very well, and I'm terrible at improvising. I've been in bands all my life, and usually I'll write a song, and then I take that song to the band. I'm like, hey, here's the song, and then my bandmates will tear it apart and make it better. But when my band would say, "Hey, let's just jam out for a little bit," I'm like cowering in the corner. I'm like, I can't improvise very well. I should be so much better than what I am. But yeah, I've been playing 25 years or so. That brings up a good point that we talk about on our podcast quite a bit. Is I'm always learning new things, but I never master anything. And I find enjoyment in learning new things. And if I know just enough about woodworking and just enough about metalworking and just enough to get by with electronics, I can combine all those things to do something new. And I don't feel like I have to be an expert at anything. If I'm an expert at anything, it's probably video editing.
Yeah, I have one question. Would you consider
Mm-hmm.
this to be your dream job?
100% yes. I'm very, very fortunate to be doing this. I think I've been doing it full time for 6 years now, and it still feels like I'm on vacation and I have to go back to my old job any day. But yeah, very fortunate definitely my dream job. So a couple reasons. One is I have a very unusual shop. So I've got carpeted floors, I got the drop ceiling, and it's more like an office in there. One is it helps with sound. It helps with the absorption of all the sound, especially at the drop ceiling I get in there. It's if you've ever been into a recording studio, like a vocal booth, you feel weird when you walk into the vocal booth because there's no audio reflections. It's you kind of get the same thing when you walk into my shop. Everybody's like, it's so quiet in here. So that helps with the tool sounds. Plus, if it's going to be a place where I'm in there multiple days a week for hours at a time, I want it to be comfortable and not walk on concrete. And for me, I I find creativity when I'm most comfortable. And some people, like I'll hear Jack White of the White Stripes, and he'll say he's more creative when he's uncomfortable. And so he picks a guitar that's purposely hard to play, because it forces him to be creative. So everybody has to find that thing that makes them creative. And for me, it's about being comfortable, and that's where the carpet comes in. And another big question I get a lot is, does it take a lot longer to clean up your shop because it's carpeted than other shops? And um, it takes about 15 minutes to vacuum the shop. If it was just a broom, it would probably take 5-10 minutes. It's not that big of a deal, and it's like the carpet that you would find in an office or at a library, that really low that stuff. So it's not like a plushy and super cushiony. It's easy to vacuum. I could even sweep it with a broom if I wanted to.
You know, one thing, David, I've noticed throughout this last 40 minutes of interview, I guess, is that you talk a lot about very deliberate ways to find inspiration or passion or mechanisms, actual physical mechanisms you put into your life to force yourself to be creative or inspired. You want to say just a little bit about that? Maybe how students could actually increase the amount of creativity in their lives, right?
So, um, it's you have to remind yourself to be looking for creativity at all times. Um, I mean, I'm constantly like, even I can't even watch a movie at home without like having my phone or like a tablet out, like just flipping through photos, looking at inspiration, or just flipping through a book. You have to want to be creative, and you have to be looking for the inspiration at all times. For me, that's how it works. Sometimes, because of all the technology, that there's too many options. So another thing that I might do is I might limit myself to, hey, I'm going to make a project this weekend, and I'm just going to use these tools, and I've got, maybe 4 board feet of walnuts. I'm going to make something out of that. And that limitation sometimes helps you become a little bit more creative, especially when in a world where there were just endless possibilities to do anything that you want. So it's just constantly, I'm in a position where I have to be creative. And so it's a little different for me. Every week I got to come up with a new project. So I'm always trying to trick myself into finding inspiration in things. And a lot of times it's just going to the antique store and just walking around and looking at things until something hits me. But you have to want it. You definitely have to want it.
Well, that's good. That's very good advice.
So, are you guys familiar with Peter McKinnon, the photographer? Absolutely awesome. He is photographer, videographer, and his videos are less tutorial and more of like, hey, hang out with me for 15 minutes now. And they're super inspiring because he's just got a super creative eye. He's really good at talking to the camera and making videos. So Peter McKinnon is one of those. another one is Dan Mace. He is if you watch when Casey Neistat was making vlogs, he would be in Casey's videos every once in a while. I think he lives in South Africa. Creative, and his videos will be about anything. He's just really good at finding the story and whatever he's doing and pulling that story out. And he also is a musician, and he will make the music in his videos from various samples, and it's just really creative. So Peter McKinnon, Dan Mace are a couple of my favorites right now. My podcast mates, Jimmy DeResta and Bob Claggett. But I find myself not watching woodworking videos as much as I used to because I'm trying to pull in inspiration from other areas.
So that was a bell to end class. Is that excellent indication how informative and inspiring you were, that they all didn't just hang up and make a run for it like they do for me.
I appreciate that. And in that video, and this video is probably 4 or 5 years old. In that video, I didn't finish or didn't paint the guitar. I said, we're going to paint this guitar in another video. And I'm still getting comments 5 years later, like, have you painted that guitar yet? And to be 100% honest, I don't like the guitar. It needs a little bit more work where the bridge is too high and it's a little hard to play. And I know that I can do better. So I'm going to make another guitar, and then this time I'm going to make it without the CNC. I used the CNC for that, and I want to show that you actually don't need to make a solid body guitar. You don't need a lot of tools, just a few things. So I'm going to make a guitar again. My wife is a drummer, and I've been wanting to make a snare drum for a long time. And that's kind of like using like 26 pieces and with angled cuts, and then all kind of glued together. And so maybe someday with that. I've got a book that I just recently got, and it's about making acoustic guitars, but like simplifying the process greatly. Of the body is just a rectangular body, and it's just kind of like I just made that speaker last week, and it was like removing the barriers. You don't need to know anything about speaker enclosures and all the science that goes into it. Just make something. And I love that this book takes kind of the same approach. Like acoustic guitar making can take weeks, months, but if we take out all the crazy shapes and forms and we just make a rectangular guitar, it's not that hard. So that's going to be one of the projects I want to do soon. It's called the Box Maker's Guitar. Oh, yeah. Oh, so a cigar box guitar.
Yeah.
So on the list. This book talks about cigar box guitars in here as well. It's a really cool book. So yeah.
So RJ, go ahead and grab your banjo. RJ I had in class. So RJ's a sophomore. I actually had his dad in class too, and his dad was like this legendary tinkerer. His dad could just kind of design to make anything. And then RJ's a sophomore. I had him in class last term when we went to lockdown. And the beautiful thing on this banjo was he only got half of it made in class. And then he brought it home and then buttoned it up on his own. You got to tickle that thing for 2 seconds, RJ.
So I can see the body of it again. Okay, so there's like a I don't know much about banjos, but there's like a snare drummy type thing in there. So because as soon as you started playing it, I'm like, I didn't expect it to sound like it did, and you explaining that that helped. That's a really cool technique. Now, the skin on there, how does it change the tone of the guitar at all? The whole instrument thing, a lot of times instruments need a lot more time and love to make. So like making an acoustic guitar or making something like that is a very involved process, and it's a lot of techniques that I don't think. I create this little barrier in my head of like, I don't know how long that project is going to take, so I'm not going to do it. And I'll stick to like furniture because like, oh, I know I can make this desk in a matter of a day and a half because it's all rectangular cuts and I'm really familiar with it. And so I got to force myself to get out of my comfort zone a little bit more and to tackle some of these instruments, and just get over the fact that, hey, I might not be able to make a guitar in a week. You know, just I need to learn to accept, like, sometimes it can take many weeks or months to make something.
Originally, the original banjos were made by slaves, and they were just kind of made with whatever you could possibly find. So a lot of them were actually gorged. So I think that, you know, undefeatable spirit to create music or create an instrument to make music is along your themes. Like, just jump in and do whatever you can to be able to produce an item.
Yeah. So I haven't found one yet. 20 some years later, I haven't found one yet. What happens is, are you familiar? Have you ever seen Andrew Wong's channel? He's one of my favorite music channels. He's so talented. And sometimes he'll start off a video of, like, I'm just going to sample this thing. And he takes that sample and he chops it up and he finds a kick drum out of it and a snare. And then he can also, like, tune this thing and make all these notes out of it. And I'm like, that's how I want to make music. I want to sample something and turn it into something else. And I'll do that. And then I'll never do that again. I'll start something else. And we have a drum set here, but I can't play drums very well. So I'll sample a snare and I'll sample a kick, and then I'll program it. And so sometimes I'll start off with just, I'll write a program a drum beat, and then I'll write over top of that. And then sometimes it's I'll come up with a guitar lick or a lick on the keyboard. I don't have a process, and it's probably why I don't write music as much as I used to, because I don't have a process. But I'm okay with that. So, I haven't been in a band for a good 4 years now, and almost all of my friends are musicians, and they're like, my wife's a drummer, and they're like, "Don't you miss being in a band? Don't you miss writing songs?" And I play with music all the time. I'm always tinkering. I'll come up with, like, a little beat and a little melody, and it's only one part, and I never come up with a second part, but I get to use that part in a video. And so a lot of times I'm making my own music in the video, and for some reason that's satisfying enough for me. It's just that making that one little segment of what could be a song, and then just using that as background music in my video. So it's whatever satisfies you is what works. And so right now I don't want to be in a band, and I am struggling with writing a part B and a part C to a song, but that's okay because I'm using part A in my video. So I don't have a process, and I wish I did. I would probably write so much more.
Okay.
It's like a wax called Odie's oil, and it comes in a jar, and it's stupid expensive. It's like $40 for this little jar. And the reason I use it so much is it looks nice, and it's really easy to apply. I can just wipe it on with one coat and then wipe it off, and it's done, and I can move on to the next step or the next video or start editing my video. And I love that it's so quick. And since I'm trying to move from project to project as fast as I can to make a living and pay the bills, that is my favorite finish. And it smells really good. I don't know what it's made out of. It's like man cologne in a wax form. It just smells good, but it's really easy to apply. When I have a lot more time or something that needs a more durable finish, like my desk right here, polyurethane, and it's like one coat a day for 3 or 4 days. And another quick finish that I'll use every once in a while is shellac. That only takes like 30, 45 minutes to dry, depending on your humidity level. And it's real sandable, and you can do multiple coats, and it's all over the place. It's kind of like, I don't really have a go-to finish anymore. It's just whatever I feel like at the moment. It's like whatever project I want to make this week, that's what I'm going to make, and whatever finish I want to use, that's what I want to use. I think one of the struggles people have in getting into woodworking is they don't know what kind of wood to use for their particular project, and then they don't know what kind of finish to use for their particular project. And most of the time in what I do, it doesn't matter. You can use any wood that you want, and you can use any finish that you want. Don't let that be the barrier to diving into more woodworking projects.
I cannot thank you enough. I mean, this is a highlight. I mean, this whole distance learning business has really been not that much fun. Teaching is my thing. I mean, I just love it. I can't ever imagine not teaching. And the majority of my inspiration for new products and wood projects or anything is really the students in the shop. I mean, it is the most fun in the world to be in the class, in the shop with the kids. So sitting in front of a computer has been killing me last spring and this fall. I'm super excited to get back to class, but today, without a doubt, having you online was a complete inspiration and really a ton of fun. So.
Well, I appreciate you having me. Hopefully this was, I didn't know what you were expecting, so hopefully this format of asking and answering questions worked out well, because this was fun. And I love seeing the drawings. I mentioned earlier that I had this fear of showing other people my drawings, but I love looking at other people's drawings. There's just something about that. I would buy a book of just hand sketches of famous product designers. I just love that stuff. So thank you to your class for showing me that and showing me what you're working on. Ryan, that banjo is super sweet.
So I had super high expectations, and you surpassed all of them 100-fold. It was almost like a plan. Like almost. RJ, you got to admit, it was almost like a plan. He kind of, everything we've been working on, he said, oh yeah, well, this is important. So it was perfect.
Great. I mean, this was chair number 1. This is chair number 2, and chair number 2 is perfectly fine, but I could do better with the third one. And that's always going to be the case. When I'm making a project, a lot of times when I'm done with it, I'm mentally done with it too. I just want to move on to the next one, because there's always something I could have fixed, or always something I could have done better. And sometimes you just have to say, you know what, that it's good enough for now. And if down the road we want to make a third or fourth one, we can do that. We can improve on it. So now I want to make a banjo.
I'd love to see that.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate you sticking around after class to hang out. So.